I hope.
Yeah.
No,
Oh, we're
it
live.
doesn't.
You're
Would
live.
you like a count-in? Yes, yes, I would. No, no, you may not have one. Well, welcome to Finding Joy Live. I am so glad to be here on the show with my new friend Lindsay from Fantastical Fatty. Thank you, Lindsay Johnson, for being here.
Thanks for having me. I'm glad we could finally make this work. I think this is our third reschedule, so I'm so
Yes.
glad we finally got this to work.
Yes, that's right. That's right. Well, I want to let everybody know a little bit about you, Lindsay. So, Lindsay Johnson goes by they, them, and is also known on TikTok as at Fantastical Fatty, is a fat joy activist on a mission to help fat folks free themselves from internalized fat phobia and toxic diet culture so they can tap into their own fat joy and take up space living in their best fat body life. Body? Batty.
Batty life. Yep,
Batty.
fat batty.
Batty, batty.
Unleashing the
So
inner fat batty in everyone.
I love that. I love that. Now, I want to just explain to everybody why I want you here. You are so joyful, and your work is really, really very high vibe, and I love that about it. And we don't usually talk about fatness or weight or anything like that on this show, and I think this is a wonderful topic to explore in relationship to the emotional story we tell each other, so and ourselves. So thank you again, and tell us a little about you. Where would you like to start?
Oh gosh. Yeah, let's talk about fatness. Yeah, because that isn't if you're in the fat liberation space, it's all we talk about. But if you're not, it can feel like such a taboo topic. Oh my gosh, I'm not fat, I'm beautiful, I'm confident. And fat can have this really negative connotation. Instead of it being a descriptor, I am fat, right? I have brown hair, right? I have hazel eyes. Instead of it being a descriptor, it's become an insult. It's become something to be ashamed about. And so yeah, like for me, this is what started my fat liberation journey and the work that I do in fat liberation spaces. It's an important conversation because fat phobia affects every single person, not just people in bigger bodies.
Yeah, so that was a really interesting thing that you brought up just before we went live here. And it is absolutely my experience that I know people who are zeros and what did you say, double zero? I didn't even know you
Yeah.
could do that. Double zero.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem to matter what size we are, that our bodies, the shape and size of our bodies is not just judged but also judged very vocally
Hmm.
in our society, right? It's okay to say something to some people, for some people, it to somebody who's in a bigger body and to somebody who's in a smaller body, right? You walk into that coffee shop, oh, you look so great in that, right? And it's like,
Yeah.
why are you judging them? Right?
Yeah, why are you
So
commenting on anyone's body, period? No matter
right.
what they look like. Yeah.
Right, right. So tell me, how did you decide to take up this work? Now, I'm gonna just preface that
Yeah.
with what I see of your work in that public space is very much about fitness. And so those two things usually I wouldn't expect them in the same space. We're going to talk about accepting our bodies wherever they are and sort of allowing ourselves to let go of that fat phobia
Mhm.
and fitness at the same time.
So yeah, it's interesting that you say that because I was like, ooh, that made me mad that we wouldn't expect to see fatness and fitness in the same space because that's been my experience my entire life. I've always been very athletic, played a lot of sports, a lot of martial arts, a lot of dance. I've just always been into sports and athletics. And I wasn't necessarily in a bigger body as a child or a teen, but I was definitely not a size 00. You know what I mean? Like I would have been the upper sizes of what we would consider straight size, right? And so, the body image stuff started early when I wasn't as super, super skinny as my friends or my family, right? But through my teens, going to Girl Guides as a kid and there not being any clothes, like there was no costumes, what are they called? Uniforms. They had no uniforms that would fit, right? Or being in my early 20s and getting into snowboarding, and you literally couldn't get clothes. They did not make snowboarding clothes for people that were above a size large, maybe an extra large, right? Just all of my life in sports, in athletics, in activities, there not being equipment or clothes that fit. And also there being a "we don't want you here" message coming through everything, right? Like the only, posters, right? TV shows, at the gym, everything we're seeing is only straight size, and there's no space for fat people in athletics and sports. And I internalized that for my entire life. And, I always had this belief that I had to be thin in order to play sports, had to be thin in order to do athletics and to dance. And, even going to social dances, I used to do a lot of swing dancing, and going to social dances, and my skinny friends would get asked to dance, and I would literally be standing right next to them, and people would just look right past me. It's just everywhere. Fat people are not welcome. And that is really, really hard for people in bigger bodies to have to deal with, and have to develop such a thick skin in order to have the nerve to show up in athletic spaces. So fitness is who I am. It's always been a part of me. And within my fat liberation journey, and also what I'm advocating for, is people taking up space. And so for fat people who want to explore fitness and athletics where they felt like they weren't welcome, that is a part of what I do, is how can we help you feel welcome getting started into fitness. It's not a requirement, but a lot of people think that they can't because they're in bigger bodies, and I'm here to prove them wrong. Also, a lot of people think if they're in bigger bodies that they're not as strong or as fast or as capable, and I want themselves to prove themselves wrong.
This is great. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. Let's talk a little bit about, you were talking about a really specific internal story, right? We don't want you here, and I'm not welcome. All of those things. And when did that internal story start to shift for you, or when did it become about changing the internal story for you?
So one thing I want to be careful with around the language you just used is "that was an internal story," because that feels like gaslighting. So it wasn't an internal story; it was a very external story, or external reality. Right? As a person who was fat, who was in these spaces, it is very
Yeah.
external.
What I mean
There
by
were
that
no,
is the judgment that you
yeah.
feel, right? The judgment is there. There's no, I'm not
Mhm.
saying the judgment isn't there. I'm saying the story that you tell, that I see on your social media, is about a very happy person. And so what I'm asking you is about your internal story, about when you changed to that part of it, not about reality. Reality still exists, I'm sure.
So the internal story is the switch would have to have been from I need to lose weight to do this, to I can do this in a bigger body. And I would say the biggest shift for that happened for me in probably 2000, and what are we at here? 2000 and probably 17, 18, somewhere around there. And I had always wanted to do a triathlon, like forever. I'd want to do a triathlon. But of course, there's no there's no images or representation of people in bigger bodies doing a triathlon. And there were no clothes, no equipment that fit, right? And I had a friend, she used to have a yoga studio, but she's in a bigger body, and she got hit by a car, and it made it so that she couldn't practice yoga at the same level anymore, and so she had to close her studio down. It was a very traumatic experience. And she had said, I'm going to do a triathlon. I want to prove that my body is still very capable and very strong. Do you want to do one with me? And it took me 6 hours, 6 hours, 6 hours to go from "no, I can't, I'm too big," to "you know what, I can. Sure, let's do it. Why not? What's the worst that can happen? I can't finish. Like, let's do it." And so that switch, first of all, right there, from "well, why can't I?" was a really important one. And then, that just continued on because, I picked a program, I started training. I definitely got a lot of resistance from people in, like, a lot of resistance from people in the sport. And like I remember when I started the swim training, I could swim for fun, but not for endurance. And so I was like, I need to get some swimming lessons here for endurance swimming so I can perform better in the water. And the trainer really being like, you're gonna have to really, really work out if you're gonna make it, or you're gonna like not do well, you might drown. Like really just crushed my self-confidence and my self-esteem at the point. And it took me a whole month. It took me a month. I gave up training. I was like, what am I thinking? I can't do this. You know what I mean? And then I was like, am I going to let this skinny bitch, hope we can swear because it just happened, like steal my dream and take me out because of her fat phobia, right? And so I got back to training. I did the race. I actually did 2 races. And you know, there is something that really again shifted for me when I'm swimming, because the first leg of the sport is swimming, and I'm swimming and I'm slow and I'm fine with being slow, and I can hear people around me in the water giving up and getting out in straight size bodies. I heard one person going F this and swam over to the lifeguard and got on their little boat and got scooted out of there, right? Like there's just something that, you know, all through this process kept shifting for me, which is that other people's fat phobia and anti-fat bias in sport, that's on them. I don't have to listen. I can do it my way. And I friggin' did it. So that was a big part of changing my internal story, right? I'm going to call it a story. Again, I find that language can be pretty charged. I don't like that kind of language, but the internal belief structure around what fatness can and cannot do, I had to reframe that. Will my body look like other straight size racers? Will I have the same time as them? No, right? Not at this level because I'm just getting going, but I can friggin' do it. And I'm here to take up space.
Well, I love that you're bringing up this concept of of having all possibilities. So, a lot of times people use circumstances, right, in their lives to say, I can't do that because X, Y, and Z. And that moment that you had where you went like, well, why can't I? Of course I could do this.
Yeah.
I am there's a possibility here that I've kept myself separate from, but I'm not going to anymore. This is my
Yeah.
moment. Right?
Yeah.
That's really powerful. And that's a very it's a very clear seat of power that you embody when you do that. When you say, I am possible. My whatever I want is possible.
Yeah.
And that version of me that only I can see is possible. So that's wonderful. Um, Now, so you did this race, and then what happened? Like, was there a moment where you're like, okay, now I'm just gonna do this. Now I'm gonna be focused on fitness again, because you had been focused on fitness early in your life, right?
Well, I've
Was
always
there a
been focused
gap?
on fitness. Yeah.
Oh, there was no gap. Okay,
No.
okay, cool. So, so how did that shift your day to day living from that point forward?
Well, I don't know that it shifted my day-to-day living. I think that it started to I think it started to make me appreciate not appreciate, it made me help me really understand that change is incremental. and that and that you know, we can have this perception of if we're not good at something, why even bother? And this all or something or all or
Mm,
nothing mentality, and it shifted for me a lot into like I can move at an incremental pace in terms of changing and shifting and still absolutely get to where I want to go. So there was this sense of taking pressure off myself, to be where I'm not and to embrace where I'm at and let change happen through my own like commitment to creating what I want to create.
mm, mm. So I know we sort of struggled with the language there, but for me, that is like the embodiment of what is my internal story, right? That like the world can tell me I am whatever, but I tell me I write what happens next and what I decide. And I love that you're sort of being super deliberate about that. Now, when I see your work online, everybody should check out her TikTok. By the way, sorry, excuse me, their TikTok, and it's here, but it'll if you go on TikTok and put in at
Mhm.
fantastical fatty, fantastic, really great stuff. And one of the big things that I see there is this level of self acceptance that's even hard to put into language, right? Because the concept of self acceptance, when we talk about it, implies that we're having to accept about ourselves things that are the warts, right? That are undesired. And when I see your work, I don't see any wart, like there are no warts. You know what I mean? It's just you being you
Yeah.
in such a brilliant and big and joyful way, right? There's such a giant energy about it that you just let that light shine through. And so I'd love to just see if you could talk a little bit about, like, what is that process like for you? How do you
Yeah.
do that?
And I'm assuming here everyone has read the book Radical Self-Acceptance. And if you haven't, I recommend picking it up. Um, yeah, like you had said, it's about the warts, and I don't see any warts. And what it's about is about saying warts aren't bad. Like that's what it's about. It's about understanding that warts aren't bad. Fat isn't bad, right? Like, having ill health isn't bad. Having a mobility issue or disability isn't bad. Living in a marginalized body isn't bad. That's what self acceptance is. It is understanding that these things are not bad, right? I mean, don't get me wrong, there are bad people and there are bad things. And anyone that is harming somebody without consent, bad person, straight to jail. But but I don't know if you get that reference. Anyways, but it's understanding that you're not bad. You don't have to love yourself in spite of your warts. Your warts aren't bad. And you had mentioned earlier off camera about getting to a place of neutrality. And that's sort of the first step into, fat joy is, can you first get to fat neutrality? Can you see your body as neutral, as not good or bad, right? It's just neutral. It's just a friggin' body, right? And then my hope is for people is that you can then get to a place of fat joy and loving your fat body, appreciating your fat body. That doesn't happen overnight. That is a journey. That is a journey. But if we can at least get to, I'm not bad. And that is such an important thing when we talk about radical self-acceptance. It's understanding that you can't change your stripes, but your stripes aren't bad. So how can we accept them? How can we love them? How can we view them as a strength or a superpower? And moving beyond a conversation of having to apologize for your existence and all the parts of you.
So my experience in working with people is that those things that we count in the, when we're doing assets and detriments, right? We the things that we think are the detriments, the warts, right, are in general, they end up being our most valued asset, meaning those things, they are we've put energy into them, and maybe inadvertently, maybe negative energy into it, but there's energy there. And those stripes, as you said, can be our most beautiful thing,
Mhm.
when we see ourselves the way that joy sees us, right? That we can
Mhm.
see through joy goggles, right? And so, can you talk a little bit about why you use the joy language in the trainings that you do online?
For sure. Like I talk a lot about joyful movement. We like as we meet online 3 times a week to move our bodies together, and it is a like they're typically body weight style movements, just with a modification for folks that are in bigger bodies. Um, but I talk about joyful movement because again, I think there's this. relationship that a lot of people with bigger bodies have to exercise, in that it is a punishment, right? And like fitness, like it's a punishment. It's something that I have to do. It's a way that I earn my food, right? It's a way that I prove that I'm a good fatty. I'm trying, right? So there's a lot of, and also there can be a lot of shame and guilt and embarrassment around it just because of how exercise is used as a punishment when we're kids. And so it's like, can we get back to a place of movement is joy, right? Movement is joy. It's really interesting how many times when I'm live, somebody will come on my live, like a troll, we call them a troll, and they'll come on my live and they'll be like, they'll make really negative comments about, and again, this stuff doesn't, okay, I'll talk about that later. So they'll try to bring me down and bring us down by making negative comments. And it's always weird to me because it's like they'll make a comment about a fat person working out on camera, and then other fat people working out, and a fat person helping other people get into movement and fitness, and they make these really negative comments, and I always kind of throw back at them like, are you trying to gatekeep movement? Are you trying to gatekeep fitness? Are you saying, and this is what I mean when I say these are not internal stories, friends. The things that you feel are very real because it is bred into our society, right? It's like, so you're trying to tell me that I can't move my body because it's bigger. I'm not allowed to have access to fitness and joyful movement. And so that's, first of all, I love when those people come on because it gives me the opportunity to neutralize their comments in publicly, so other people feel less of a sting when they see that I can handle it in a neutral way. And it gives them the courage to question trolls and question their logic and also push back, right? But back to the joyful movement part, it's like, can we get back into moving our bodies in a way that feels good? Whether you're moving with me or you're moving on your own to a dance video on YouTube, or you're going for a walk and listening to some great music or a podcast, or you're doing some yoga or stretching at home, whatever that is, can you tap it back into the joy of movement? Your friggin' birthright. You were, like, movement is yours. It's not anybody else's. Can you tap into that in a way that's joyful, not based on a sense of punishment or obligation or having to earn your food? What? And I also talk about a lot about too how there is this line that anti-fat people and fat phobic people will always tell fat people, which is go to the gym, fatty, go for a run, go work out. And did you know that, because most people don't know this, that every study under the sun shows that exercise does not lead to weight loss? Go to the gym all you want, it's not going to make you lose weight. Exercise doesn't lead to weight loss. When the gyms are like, come in here, have a before and after photo, we're going to get you to lose weight. No, they might put you on a restrictive diet and get you to starve yourself skinnier, but exercise isn't what's going to make you lose weight. But exercise is phenomenal for your health, for your mental health, for your physical health, for your self-confidence and self-worth, for your body image, right? It's great at preventing diseases or helping you through diseases. Exercise is such an important part of our lives. And so if we can remove, I must exercise to lose weight, I must exercise to earn food. If we can remove that, what are we left with? The question of why am I moving and what makes me happy? What is fun for me? Yeah.
Yeah, it's great. It's great that you're really bringing in that playfulness, that joyousness. That's really great. Thank you so much. We only do a short podcast on this particular channel, and it has been so great to have you here. I want to just give you an opportunity to tell people how to get in touch with you.
For sure. I mean, come follow me on TikTok at Fantastical Fatty. Head over to fantasticalfatty.com. If you're somebody who wants to get back into moving your body or just moving it in a gentle way, come and join us for our live workouts. We meet Sunday, Wednesday, Friday at 8:30 a.m. Pacific on TikTok. And also, if you go to fantasticalfatty.com and you click on this month's movements, you will get access to the movements along with tutorials and our Spotify playlist. So I've got your back. Whatever you need, I've got you. And absolutely reach out anytime. If anything I said today has kind of struck a chord for you and you would like to explore that further.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I do want to remind everybody as well that you need to go to roadmap to morejoy.com to take the quiz. 2 minute quiz will let you know where you are in that emotional landscape and how you can get from where you are, where you live on that map, to where you'd like to be living. Upgrade your neighborhood. So thanks so much. And thank you for being here today, Lindsay.
Awesome. Thanks so much for the conversation.